I'm Joe from As the Joe Flies.
And I'm Leslie from Trips with Tykes.
And welcome back to Disney Deciphered. So on today's episode, I took a quick 3-night sailing on the Disney Wish. Wasn't going to talk about it, but found that I had a lot to say. So it's fresh on my mind, Leslie. I still have a little bit of sea legs. Like, am I rotating my chair or do I feel like I'm still on the ocean? I don't know, Leslie. I do not know.
I feel you. It took me like a full week, I think, to recover after both of my cruises in 2023. So
yeah. It was only 3 nights. What can I say? What can I say? But Leslie, before we get to that, I did do some live trip reports from the Wish. The last one released this morning as we are recording this. Leslie, we also have a new Patreon subscriber to thank. So who do we got and what is Patreon?
Yes, we're thanking Kara S., our newest supporter. You can support the podcast by going to patreon.com/Disney Deciphered, where we give you all sorts of bonuses for supporting, like Joe's trip reports. And I will have trip reports coming up soon myself. In fact, by the time this is live, they will probably be live. You get ad-free episodes and lots of other fun bonuses, access to our Facebook group, all that good stuff.
Yes. So thank you to all of our subscribers. All right. Wanted to talk a little bit about this trip. Leslie, I was wondering, do you remember why I ended up booking this cruise? The sad story. I'm giving you a little bit of a hint. The sad story that created this cruise booking.
Yes. Now I remember it. You were supposed to be on Icon of the Seas, right? And then COVID came calling and you guys had to cancel.
That's right. So I was supposed to sail on one of the inaugural sailings of Icon of the Seas, which is Royal Caribbean ship. This is not Royal Caribbean Deciphered. By all reports, she's a beautiful ship, lots of fun. Did not get to do it. Got COVID like 3 days before or so. And that was supposed to be myself and my son. I was going to miss, you probably don't know all these details, Leslie, but I was going to miss my daughter's birthday for the second year in a row. So to make it up for her, I was like, okay, at the end of spring break, let's go sail on a 3-night on the Disney Wish to make it fair. But then the Icon got canceled. Now I didn't get my solo trip with my son. And so I'm like, okay, I invited him along. But then, of course, Leslie, famously, I have a third child that I could not leave at home. I decided, ultimately, I asked the older kids first, but I was like, this seems pretty messed up for us to go and leave her. Like when we did Galactic Star Cruiser last year, that made sense because she wasn't old enough and she wouldn't have appreciated it. Ultimately, it ended up being myself and my 3 kids. Leslie, you can guess what my wife said when I invited her, which was a big fat
no, but I'm really impressed, Joe. Like, dad, 3 kids. I know your kids are getting bigger and can manage themselves, especially the oldest one. But you must have gotten some major thumbs up and props from fellow passengers or cast members or something, right?
I did not, and I did not get any thumbs up. And you know what? I'm going to say that is because we are progressing on as a society.
Okay.
And, I always joked when I had just one kid and you take them to the playground, everyone's like, oh, wow, he's doing such a good job. Jobs that moms do every single day. And so I will say that not getting compliments is just society's progressing, and they see that dads should not get extra praise for doing the same work that moms do all the time. Speaking of which, another funny thing was I actually, coincidentally, had a group of 11 women traveling together on the same cruise. And over half of them were moms, and they were getting away from their kids. And I ran into them on the cruise. Brenda and crew, if you're listening, shout out to you all. They severely embarrassed me at the dining. We ended up we didn't know, but we were on the same dining, and they were like, "Oh, Joe, well, you're here." And I was like so embarrassed. My kids were like, "What is happening?" But it was pretty funny overall. But anyway, they went on the cruise to de-stress and be away from the kids. My wife, equally happy not being on the cruise to de-stress and not have her kids and husband around. So, everyone finds their own ways to relax, and moms, you deserve it.
Fair enough. This is actually good timing because we got Mother's Day coming up. So hopefully this will be released right around the right time. Okay, so let's do a quick run through of what you tried, things that were new. I honestly haven't paid too much attention to the Wish since it was released, because now everybody's already moved on to the Treasure. So I want to hear how things are operating and maybe things have changed since the ship first sailed.
Yeah, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give a few tips that I learned, and then I'm going to talk about what I think the Wish does better than other ships in the fleet. Because when the Wish first came online, Leslie, it was a new class of ship, and it was different than, the old Magic class, Dream class. Even though the Dream class is much bigger, it feels the same. And really, everything feels very familiar. When the Wish came online, it was pretty different. The layout was different. And a lot of Disney Cruise Line fans just were not a fan. And the line I keep hearing from DCL fans is, beautiful ship, not my favorite. Now, last January, I sent a good buddy of mine on the Wish for the first time, and he was debating, like, should I go on the Wish or whatever? And what I always tell my clients is, if you're a first-time cruiser, whatever Disney ship you get on is going to be the best. And I feel like as time goes on, the Wish is going to become people's favorite ship because it was their first ship. I think it's just nostalgia. And so, anyway, there was a lot of growing pains because of the 4 and 3 night sailings, like service. It took a while for them to figure out how to do it. Now, myself sailing almost 2 years since the Wish started, it seems like they've ironed everything out. I didn't notice any service hiccups or anything like that. So that's my quick impression on the Wish. Now, Leslie, I don't know what you do, but I did try a few new things, just kind of cruise logistics wise. I drove to the Port Canaveral for the first time. Now, remind me, when you sailed on the Wonder from San Diego, you did not have a car, right? Because you had to fly down there.
No, I didn't have a car, and we were on, a media trip, so they bused us. I mean, similar to what the buses would be from Disney World to Port Canaveral. So it was all handled for me. So I'm curious about how driving was and how sort of the port parking situation. And
bottom line is, it's $39 per person per segment for Disney transportation. So calling that $40, that's $320. I got a rental car for the entire weekend for $200, and Port Canaveral parking was $72. So even if you throw in gas, I was coming out ahead. Plus, I had the flexibility of being in control myself. Now, a lot of people love to board early. I'm just not that guy. Like, I just don't like to board early. I was regretting it a little bit because there was a bit of a line to get into the actual port area, because I rolled in. I actually got a port arrival time of 11:45, which was fairly early. And if you are taking Disney transportation, a lot of people like to take that because you get the earliest boarding time that's not concierge. But I rolled in 1:30, 1:45, 2 hours after my boarding time. We were hanging out at the yacht club beforehand. Only had a little bit of regret because we had to wait a little bit to like actually get in and drop off our bags. But after that, there was plenty of parking. It was $72. We walked right on the ship. We had to wait in a 10-minute line. I timed it because I was like, oh, there's this line for security and passport check and all that. And I was like, is it going to be longer than it was 11:45? It was 10 minutes. And they have changed since you and I went out of Port Canaveral years ago. Leslie, they've changed the setup so that you do your check-in before you go through security, which I think has made things a lot more efficient. And when I finished checking in, they were like, your room's already ready. This is before I even went through security. And I was like, this is what I want. So we just walked straight to our room and then started exploring this ship. Still had 2 hours before muster drill to explore it. I'm just, I don't know. Everyone is like, get on board as fast as you can. Even on this 3-night cruise, which was pretty short, I was like, you know what? I just rather chill and do it my way.
Yeah, and we boarded late, if you'll remember, for our Disney Wonder Cruise out of San Diego last year. We were enjoying the Hotel del Coronado in San Diego, and we're like, it's a 5-night cruise. We can go on a little bit late. And like you said, we had no wait. We breezed through everything. There were just not the human beings in the way. We could get the photos at the little like backdrop that we wanted. So I'm a fan, but I'm not sure I would feel the same necessarily for a 3-night cruise because like every minute seems like it counts to me. But yeah, especially for longer ones, no question I will do that again.
Yeah, I changed my mind on 3-night cruises a little bit. I still think they're too short if it's like your first cruise. But Leslie, especially because, I mean, it's been a while, but still, you've done Nassau, you've done Castaway Cay. Even if you haven't done Nassau, it's just, there are better places in the Caribbean, right? Because you
like Mazatlan on the Pacific cruise, like we could have skipped it. Yeah,
exactly. And you are there on a 3-night cruise. Like for us, we were just there to explore the Wish. Now, because we had done Disney cruises before, it didn't feel as rushed because we're not going to spend 8 hours on land or whatever. We're just exploring the ship in our own time. So that worked out fine. I still think if it's your first cruise, though, 3 nights is too short. You don't know, like things like express walk off and checking in and just when are your bags going to come, all that stuff. You kind of aren't used to that. So I do think I still would recommend at least a 4-night cruise if it's your first time. But for second time cruisers, a 3-night cruise, if you just want to try the Wish, go ahead and do that. Other things that we tried, I got the internet package for the first time. Leslie, I have good news for you. I think since you were on the Wonder, they upgraded the internet. Like, and I know you were just on the Wonder.
They did.
Yeah. So
they did. I saw the news about it when I was writing a blog post. I was like one of the last months that they sailed when it stunk to high heaven. But yeah, there you go. Yeah.
So I bought the most expensive, the premium surf internet package for the whole trip, just because I was working when my kids were having fun at times. So that was $102 for the 3-night cruise. You can do that on the one. I think you can do that on all the ships now. And that's way better than when you used to have to pay by the megabyte or whatever, which was incredibly antiquated. And the internet works well. Couple tips I learned. You're not supposed to be able to stream Netflix. I used a VPN to download the K-drama that I'm watching with my wife. That's the one thing that we missed out on doing together because I was on the cruise. Like we're watching this K-drama, Queen of Tears. You should check it out. And so I downloaded it off of I used ExpressVPN, not sponsored, but I used the DCL Wi-Fi with that, downloaded it. So I couldn't watch Netflix like live on the internet, but I could use the internet to download it. And the other thing I will add, my buddy Eric, a good friend of mine, sailed the Wonder like right after they had upgraded the internet. He recommended, I didn't do this, but I just want to say this because I think it works pretty well. He recommended buying something called a travel router. And what that does is you can buy internet for one device, but it basically creates like a mini router that you can connect your other devices to, and then everyone can use the same thing. A bit nerdy. I looked it up. I Googled it. It's like $75. Again, not sponsored. Anyway, if you're out there trying to hack the DCL internet or any hotel internet, really, go ahead and check out travel routers. It's really only applicable to that situation. So that was the internet. Castaway Cay, Leslie, I don't know, did you listen to my trip report about how I basically reverse rope drop this thing? Trademark rope drop radio? Yes,
I did. And I think pretty brilliant, especially for people who've done Castaway Cay multiple times. For those who didn't listen to the trip report, tell us how it went.
Yeah, so Aqua Mouse is the roller coaster / water ride on the Disney Wish. By the way, I like the Aqua Duck better because it's a longer ride, but the Aqua Mouse, Leslie, I don't want to spoil too much, but they have managed to put Disney storytelling and theming into a water slide. And I'm just always impressed by how storytelling is, so front and center of Disney's work. So the Aqua Mouse was really good. We rode it on Nassau Day, waited 40 minutes. The deck was blazing hot. The kids were like, one of my children was literally crying because she said her feet were like burning off. Okay. And so 40 minutes was not the greatest experience. I mean, the ride itself was great, but 40 minutes, Leslie, that's the longest I've waited in a Disney line for years. So I was thinking to myself, you know what? Everyone gets off and goes straight to Castaway Cay. My kids never last longer than 3, 4, 5 hours. Why does it have to be the first 3, 4, 5 hours? The weather was going to be perfect all day. So I was like, let me wander up to the pool deck. I had the kids get into their swimsuits before breakfast just so we could go straight to Castaway Cay if we wanted to. And I was like, let me wander up to the pool deck and see what's going on. No line at the Aqua Mouse, Leslie. We walked on that thing. We rode it 4 times each. It was awesome. Sat there, watched all of Finding Nemo on the funnel vision and, spent some time in the pool, which was like basically empty. At some points, it was just my kids in the pool watching the movie. And then, around 12 o'clock, rolled into Castaway Cay. As the time went on, more and more people left Castaway Cay. We got more and more of the beach to ourselves. It was great. That's probably how I'm going to do it. Like, as long as the weather's good the whole day, that's probably how I'm going to do it going forward. It just made a lot of sense because everyone wants to get off at Castaway Cay, but we can't spend a whole day there out at the beach. Yeah, I think that was a super smart strategy. Zig when other people zag. The rope dropper in us, though, Joe, like it's hard to get over that instinct to, be the first off the ship and but you don't need to be at Castaway Cay. You're right. The last time I was there, and it was a long time ago, but with young kids especially, they're not going to make it all day. Definitely. Yeah, and I was like, these kids are going to have to go to school again eventually. And I found after the first night, they were sleeping in on the cruise, which they don't get to do during the school year. And we're not able to do. We were at their cousin's house before we went to the Wish. We were in North Carolina. They just were not sleeping. So I was like, you know what? Let these kids sleep as long as they need to. As long as we wake up before breakfast ends, we can just take it easy. Because the thing I love about Disney Cruise Line is it gives you a chance to relax. And that's what we did on this cruise. All right. So those are some tips. What I'm going to do next after the break is we're going to talk about a few things that I think the Disney Wish does better than the other ships in the fleet. Just one man's opinion. Just putting that out there. Don't send me hate mail. All right. And just a very limited 3-night perfect weather cruise. I'll put that out there as well. Yeah, we'll take a quick break and we'll come back with that. And then we'll close the episode out with some comparisons between a 3-night cruise and possibly taking a trip to the parks. Just a quick reminder, if you're watching us on YouTube and enjoying this, please like, subscribe, leave us a comment, leave us your opinions, and hit that bell button for notifications. Thank you. All right, Leslie. So what does the Wish do better? I'm curious. On your cruise out of San Diego, it probably was warm enough to use the pools. And I know your kids are aging out of it a little bit, but did they use the pools at all? Do you even feel like they would have used the pools at younger ages?
They did not use the pool at all. In fact, it was too cold in San Diego. But once we got down to Mexico, it was definitely warm enough. My husband and son did like the last day, 1 hour maybe in the pools. But yeah, there's more things that I think teenagers want to do than get in the pool.
Definitely agree. Now, when I was on the Wonder, last time I was on the Wonder, we were in Alaska, so no one was in the pools. But last time when you and I were on the Wonder 7 years ago, crazy, like the pools are just littered with children. Christy from Pack Your Pixie Dust and the DCL podcast, she calls it kid soup. I mean, it is just completely littered with children. I think there's no way to completely solve this if you just think about the sheer number of children that are going to be on a cruise, especially a Disney cruise. But there are way more pools on the Disney Wish. And I didn't look this up beforehand, so I was surprised by it. Way more pools. There are 5 or 6. They weren't all open at the same time, but there's 5 or 6, including a couple waiting pools in front of the Funnel Vision. For those of you who don't know, Funnel Vision is just a gigantic movie screen where they play Disney movies all the time. We watched parts of 5 or 6 movies throughout the 3-night cruise. I think that's better than I've been on the Dream. I've been on the Wonder. On the Dream and the Wonder, I actively discourage my kids from going to the pool. I'm just like, this is disgusting. I don't want to deal this. They definitely had some kid soup moments, but because there were more pools, it just felt better, and definitely happy about the pool situation on the Wish. So that's one thing I think that the Wish does better than the other ships in the fleet.
That's good to hear because, you have to imagine when Disney was first designing these ships, this was a brand new endeavor in a way. They were probably using models of other cruise line ships to design, not thinking that the demographic sailing was going to be very, very different than, say, on a Celebrity or even a Carnival, something like that. So this is Disney responding to the demand. So I 2 thumbs up for that. What else did you see that was different, Joe?
Yeah, I was going to save this for last, but since you just said that, it dovetails really well. I really do feel like Disney took a look at their average cruiser and they designed the ship based on that. There are a lot of layout changes that I wouldn't necessarily say it's better than the old ships. Everyone complains about how there's only 2 elevator banks on the Disney Wish. And I will say that those elevators are kind of gross. It doesn't feel like the air is moving around in there enough. But we mostly walk. Obviously, if you have mobility issues, this is going to be a huge problem for you. But for us, at my current age and my kids' current age, we mostly use the stairs. And everyone talks about the negative about the 2 elevator banks. What I didn't realize is it was a design choice. The laundry there's just one laundry. Of course, I'm talking about laundry, Leslie. Of course. But the laundry did laundry on the first night of the cruise, by the way. Everyone wants to know that. The laundromat it's actually in the middle of the ship. And so you leave the elevator bank and normally there's just a wall there and that's where the cast is. Well, there's an entire room there, which is a gigantic laundromat. And so because of the 2 elevator banks, they've been able to use this space in the middle of the ship that you don't see used in the other ships. And, it's funny, my 11-year-old, I didn't say anything to her about anything. She's like, at one point she was like, it's weird. It's kind of annoying that there are only 2 elevator banks. And then she like did one of those things that kids do, and they were like looking at you and you can tell they're like thinking. And then she's like, but then again, when I think about it, like the layout makes sense. And, I don't like from the mouth of babes. Like I do think that Disney put a lot of thought in this design because regular Disney Cruise Line people were not, it was a big change. It's tough to like get over your implicit biases. So I actually really liked the layout of the ships. I thought they were able to route people better. I feel like just where the shops were. I know a lot of has been said about there's like too many shops and there's too many jewelry shops, maybe, but I was able to avoid them pretty easily. I think people don't like that there's not like an adult district. I don't mind that. It was because my kids always felt weird walking through the adult district because you have to like go through there to get places. Now that the bars and lounges are spread out, I feel like it just spreads people out through the ship better.
So your daughter, future Disney podcaster, she has things to say, analysis to do. I'm impressed.
Yeah,
What
or
else did you,
Imagineer, like
notice?
they're like designing
Maybe.
their own. They're designing like all their own things. Going back to the pool deck, the food people rave about and compliment all the time. It was as good as advertised. It blew my mind, Leslie. If you watch the making of the Disney Wish on Disney Plus, there are a lot of chicken tender jokes. And on the last night, I realized I didn't eat a single chicken tender, which my kids were laughing about because they were joking about the chicken tender thing the whole entire time. But that just speaks to how good the rest of the food is that I wanted to eat. They have a barbecue place. They have a Mexican place. Actually, their burgers are actually pretty good. The pizza, I tried that too. I like that. The pool deck food was definitely a step above. Like on the Wonder and the Dream, I feel like I'm just eating pool deck food because I'm on a cruise and I just want to stuff my face. Whereas on the Wish, like there was a day where I was like, you know what? I don't really want to go to Marceline Market, which is the buffet cabanas, basically cabanas on the Wish. I was like, I want to go eat at the pool deck because I like the food there and it's good. So 2 thumbs up for the pool deck food, better than the other ships in the Disney class. Now, the next thing that I thought really impressed me was what they call the Grand Hall, which is the atrium that you walk into. Just a beautiful space. I don't know if you've seen pictures of it, Leslie, but the chandelier is amazing. There's a stage that they use for shows, both like big and small shows, just like mini shows, which there's kind of just always something going on there. It feels a lot more alive. And we didn't even swing by for like a lot of shows, but we would just be walking through and then something would be happening and we just stop and wait and watch and then move on. Really love that Grand Hall. It's really beautiful.
Yeah, I have seen photos and it does look, kind of like a fantasy storybook, which is the theme, of course, that the Wish is going for, which I think works in that space because it's supposed to be grand, but got to see it for myself one day. All right, what else, Joe?
All right, wrapping things up almost. The dining entertainment, it really impressed me. So on the Wish, there seems to be a lot more emphasis on entertainment. So there's the Worlds of Marvel dinner show. And then there's also Arendelle, which I didn't realize this, but it was basically like a Frozen musical review. The singer at Arendelle, she was excellent. It was actually a 3-person band, violin, guitarist, who also sings background vocals, and then a lead singer. And so I knew that, I assumed at Arendelle, Anna and Elsa come out, which is true. I thought Disney made a super smart decision. Anna and Elsa are not the singers. They sing at parts, but they're not the lead singer of the show. It's just some other random Arendellian or whatever. She was so good. The music was really good. I said on the trip report, I figured out it was live because the background vocalist, or no, I think it was Christoph actually, he missed a harmony. And I was like, well, props to you all for doing this live, but tighten that up, buddy. And that show was really good. Worlds of Marvel, I really like. I can see why people wouldn't want to do it a second time because the story is going to be the same every time. Whereas, when you're listening to Frozen music, you're listening to a Disney podcast. How many times have you listened to the Frozen music, right? Like you can listen to it again. You can stomach listening to it again. My kids, they like Worlds of Marvel the best. They were like, oh, we would go back there again because they just had a lot of fun there. And so very entertaining. and all the actors like just throughout the ship. And this is not necessarily better than the other Disney ships, but they were all top notch. They did a really good job, but really impressed by the dinner shows. I was not very, I mean, I was kind of like whatever about Arendelle, but I was really impressed with the dining entertainment. Thought it was better. Yes, the dining rooms are a little bit cramped, but still thought that was better overall than the other Disney ships.
I think that's good for families, especially with younger kids, to know that you're going to get more entertainment built into dinner. Because one thing that, I experienced when I went on a cruise when my son was 3 was we were going to do dinner, early seating, and then it was going to be bedtime. Like we weren't going to make the show, or at least we tried to make the show, but we rarely made it through more than a part of it or something like that. So if the parents, especially if younger kids, want to still get some entertainment, I think that's a nice bonus that you're getting it at dinner. And so maybe this is a ship that works for families with younger kids, and in a way that, maybe a longer cruise might not.
I definitely agree. I think, yeah, this is why I say I feel like if the Wish is your first ship, there's a really strong. I mean, my first ship, the Wonder, is my favorite. I talked to my buddy, the one who I sent on the Wish, who had never been on Disney Cruise before, and I was like telling him when I got back, I was like, oh, I was really impressed with the ship, and we were just talking about what impressed me about it, which is most of the stuff that we're talking about right now. But he's like, yeah, I had nothing to compare it to. I thought it was amazing. And I really feel like for first time Disney cruisers, that's what they're going to feel, which is the last thing I think that Disney Wish does better than the Fleet. It's a beautiful ship. I think it's the best looking ship, obviously. Again, on making of the Disney Wish, which caveat at the very beginning, they're like, this is promotional material filmed by National Geographic. So take that with a grain of salt. But they talk about how they use like thousands and thousands of pieces of art from the archive to decorate the ship. And I felt that. Like, I thought the art, I mean, it's good on all the Disney ships, but everything is newer. It's cleaner. The carpets are newer and cleaner. The hull looks better. And you know what? All these older ships, like the Wonder, you've been on the Wonder. When you're docking, okay, your stateroom starts rattling and you feel like your stateroom is going to like shake out of the, and yes, it's only 10, 15 minutes when you're docking or whatever, but when you're docking at like 6 a.m., it does matter. Like one time I thought like the toilet was going to explode or something. The Wish doesn't have any of those problems. Not the rest of the fleet's fault, right? The Wish is just the newest thing, but still, it's the newest thing. And I thought it was a beautiful ship, and it really, I could feel the care and the thought that was put into making this ship. And I do think that, like I said at the beginning, Disney has learned lessons and they've implemented it into the ship design. And so I thought that was pretty awesome. Really excited about the Treasure Leslie because it's basically the same ship, but I really feel like one thing that hurt the Wish is the 3 and 4 night sailings. Yes, it didn't hurt Disney's bottom line, but I think it hurt people's enjoyment of the ships, especially longtime cruisers. 7 night sailing on the Treasure. We have one booked for next February. It's going to be really cool. And it's going to be really cool what they do with that Grand Hall space, since it's going to be like Pirates themed or whatever. Let's see what kind of shows they have going on there instead of the Wish type stuff that happens in the atrium, the Grand Hall, excuse me.
Yeah, I really got to get on the Treasure. As you know, I was hemming and hawing about booking for summer 2025, and we ended up going on a different ship to be able to do the Lighthouse Point and Castaway Cay sort of double dip. But it's up there on the bucket list. I think my husband will really enjoy that one. So Joe, stand by for future cruise bookings. So before we get to our traditional Disney do or don't, what do you think, Joe? Was this worth it for 3 nights only?
Yeah. So actually, one of our Patreon supporters, Mary C., who is also a client, shout out to you, Mary. She actually sent me an email today about, making a payment for her on a vacation or whatever. And she asked me, was a 3 night cruise worth it with all the travel time and expense needed to get to and from the port? And I was thinking about the question a little bit. Like I said from the top, this cruise was going to happen just because of all the extenuating circumstances that, the whole Icon of the Sea situation and all that. But I was like, you know what? How does this, people hop down to Walt Disney World for a weekend all the time. How does this compare to that? And honestly, it's not that much more expensive. And depending on where you're staying, it's less expensive. So just full disclosure, I don't have the exact number on me, but the cruise for the 4 of us was about $4,000 for the 3 night cruise. Caveat is we booked it late and blah, blah, whatever. Okay. Cost us $4,000. Money I'm not getting back, so it doesn't matter. I took a look for a 3-night cruise next year in April. I had to go a little bit later in April because Easter is late, April 20th next year. So on April 25th, the Wish, it's about $4,000 for an inside room, $4,200 for an ocean view, $4,500 for a veranda, starting prices. Well, a 3-night Disney stay with 3-day base tickets for that same weekend, $3,000 at Pop, $3,200 at Caribbean Beach, $4,300 at Contemporary. So if you stay at an inside on the Wish, it's cheaper than the Contemporary already. That is like pretty comparable. So if you're thinking about taking a weekend trip to Walt Disney World, like if you are, huge caveat, right? You're already thinking about spending thousands of dollars to just visit Disney World for a weekend. I think sailing on the Wish is not, and the Wish is the most expensive Disney cruise, by the way. It's not like that much more expensive, and value proposition wise, especially if you've been to the parks a lot, it might be better. Just really quickly, on a 4-night the week after, Pop is still 3,000. I guess that's because Easter break is over. So Pop's 3,000, Caribbean Beach is 3,300, Contemporary's 4,700. The Wish is starting at 4,700 for an inside room. So the Wish gets a little bit more expensive on the 4-night cruise. Oh, that's a comparable 4-night Walt Disney World stay. But still, I think it's pretty close. And guess what? When you're on the Wish, you're not paying for Genie Plus. I mean, you're going to buy other things, but you're not going to pay for Genie Plus. You're not going to pay for individual lightning lanes. And you know what else you're not going to do? Wake up at 7 a.m.
And you're not paying for food.
Oh yeah, you're not paying for food too. Great point. I didn't even think about the food when I was doing these calculations. So, it's a ton of money.
But sleeping in, priceless.
Sleeping in, priceless. Sleeping in, priceless. Yes, thank you, MasterCard. It's a ton of money either way. I'm not saying, like, obviously people shouldn't make these decisions lightly, but if you are a regular, if you take a trip to Disney World every single year and you're not an annual pass holder, then maybe you take a Disney cruise and see how it goes. I ended up walking off with a bill for a couple $100. We bought some souvenirs, gratuities, like were added to my bill because I didn't prepay for them. And, I paid the $100 for the internet, right? So it wasn't a huge bill that I walked off of. So, in the end, I walked off the ship paying $4,500. That's with all my food included and stuff like that. So great point. Oh yeah, I had to buy a few non-dairy ice creams for my daughter because there's the free soft serve, but it's all dairy only. So, I had to buy a couple of sorbets for her. But yeah, it worked out really well. So anyway, something to consider. Leslie, I know that you have started considering this because, you could have gone to Disneyland for a spring break, but you took the cruise instead. So just something to throw out there.
All right, Joe, why don't you close this out with a Disney do or don't?
All right, so I have a don't and a do. My Disney don't is don't stress out if you don't get the excursion, adult meal, alcohol tasting, whatever that you wanted, because no guarantees, but on Disney Cruise Line, there's just a ton of movement in terms of cancellations, walk-up space you can get on the ship. We have a mutual friend, Leslie, who is like very wanting to swim with dolphins in, I can't remember which port, I think maybe British Virgin Islands. And, with persistence, she was able to get it. It wasn't available. She booked the cruise late, so her excursion window had like long passed. It was completely sold out. With time and persistence, she was able to get it. And even if you don't have the time and persistence, if you get on the ship, go to guest services that first day, do talk to them, say what you want to get on the wait list for. And a lot of times positive things happen. For better or worse, cruises still are germination factories for illnesses. And you may really be disappointed that you didn't get that Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique appointment for your kid. But I bet you at least one of the kids who did get it is going to get sick. I hate to say this, but that is the truth. Leslie, I will say one last thing. Having COVID in January, so freeing to be on this cruise. So freeing. Just not worrying about getting sick. I mean, I guess on a 3-night cruise, we would have had to been already showing symptoms before we got on to like really be worried, but it was so great just not to worry. People are still coughing. It was nice not to think about that too much.
For sure. You and I have both now managed to catch COVID on different cruises within the last couple of years. So yeah, go right after you get all the major illnesses for sure.
Yeah. I was like the one, I'm a eternal pessimist. The one thought I was like, oh, yeah, I'm not going to get COVID again. But then at one point I was like, oh, is my stomach hurting? I was like, oh no. But you know what, Leslie? It's just because my stomach wasn't, I've been trying to lose a little bit of weight, Leslie, and my stomach wasn't used to cruise eating. And so that's why it hurt, thankfully. There was no actual illness happening.
Good. You have better luck than our family had at Tokyo Disney, as you know. We had one come down with a stomach bug there. So the realities of travel.
Indeed, indeed. All right. Well, thank you everyone for indulging and letting me talk about this cruise. We had a lot of fun. Leslie, definitely Wish or Treasure. Check it out sometime. We got to get you on the Not Wonder, basically, is what's going to have to happen. But still, really enjoy cruising, really relaxing. I cannot overstate just how much more relaxing it is than a Disney World vacation. I still prefer Disney World, but being on a Disney cruise, having the service is still spectacular. Everyone's smiling at you. That's amazing. But like we said, Leslie, you don't have to wake up at 7 a.m. Priceless. Priceless. All right. If you have any thoughts on the Disney Wish or Disney cruising in general, you can email us disneydeciphered@gmail.com, tweet at us at www.deciphered on Twitter, or find us on Instagram, Disney Deciphered. Thank you, everyone, for listening to this slightly longer episode. And other than that, Leslie, thank you for taking the time to talk to me. And I will see you booking the Wish or the Treasure for 2026, maybe?
Thanks, Joe.